Amabile has some great advice for Grant and Juliana. March 31, 2025. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bachelor Nation news fans. Amabile is a well-known person from Bachelor Nation. He is married to Serena Pitt. Fans love the two of them together. However, Joe has some advice for the newly engaged couple in the public eye. Grant Ellis and Juliana Pasquarosa are engaged after being on The Bachelor. He has some valuable things to share about keeping the relationship healthy while having a bunch of people interfering with your relationship. Keep reading to find out more about this situation. Grant Ellis chooses Juliana Pasquarosa to marry. Grant Ellis was the recent Bachelor. However, fans were not impressed with his season. He was boring to watch, and no one was into this season. Since the season aired, Grant has been listening to some of the backlash he has received and admitted that he could have done better. However, his decision at the end of his journey was not one fans agreed with. Viewers think he should have picked Lydia Gare. Even if he did not want to pick her, he should not have filled her with empty promises during the entire journey. It was a messed up thing to do to someone. Amabile has some great advice for the newly engaged couple. Amabile has some great advice for Grant Ellis and Juliana Pasquarosa. I would say my number one advice right now is to really enjoy this time, especially for someone like Grant who's the lead. And you do get a lot of people that disagree with how you handle the situation. But I think just enjoying this moment and not focusing on any of that, and really just enjoying each other, and having as much fun as you can. Now that filming is over, Joe encourages them to focus on their relationship and have fun. It can get tough when people are watching your relationship and judging it. So Joe thinks they need to focus on themselves and not what social media is saying. Joe acknowledged that a lot of people disagreed with Grant's decision. However, he thinks he needs to focus on his fiancé and not social media chatter. It seems as though Joe thinks the two need to just focus on having fun and enjoying their relationship. This is something that can be hard to do when a lot of the public is disagreeing with the decision Grant made. However, this is important to keep the relationship strong and healthy. Grant recently reflected on his season and admitted he could have done things better. What do you think about Joe's advice? Do you think Grant and Juliana need to listen to it? Sound off in the comments below. We would love to hear your thoughts on this situation. Amabile has some great advice for Grant and Juliana, but will they listen? Amabile, better known to his fans as Grocery Store Joe, has seen it all when it comes to love, heartbreak, and reality TV drama. From his early days on The Bachelorette to his iconic runs on Bachelor in Paradise, Joe has picked up some serious wisdom along the way. But when he sits down with Grant and Juliana, a couple on the brink of disaster, even he starts to wonder, can love really be saved, or is some advice just too little, too late? A relationship in peril. Grant and Juliana were once the picture-perfect couple. Social media adored them, their friends envied them, and their chemistry was undeniable. But behind the curated Instagram photos and perfectly edited TikToks, trouble had been brewing for months. Fights over wedding plans turned into arguments over finances, which morphed into accusations of emotional distance. The cracks in their relationship were growing wider, and with their engagement hanging by a thread, they knew they needed help. Enter Amabile. The intervention. Joe agreed to meet them at a cozy little cafe in downtown Chicago. He had heard their story, seen the tension between them, and now he was ready to do what he did best, tell it like it is. Look, I get it, Joe said, stirring his coffee. Love isn't easy, and when you throw in public scrutiny, wedding stress, and money issues, it gets even harder. But the question isn't whether love is hard, it's whether you two are still in it for the right reasons. Grant looked down at his hands, avoiding eye contact. Juliana, on the other hand, leaned in, eager for any guidance. So what do we do, Joe? She asked. How do we fix this? Joe took a deep breath. You start by being honest with yourselves. The hard truth. Joe didn't sugarcoat it. He laid out 3 core truths that every couple, especially those in the spotlight, needed to face. Love isn't performance art. If you're doing this for social media, for validation, or because you're afraid of looking like failures, stop now. Love isn't for an audience. It's for you too. You have to fight for each other, not against each other. Disagreements are normal. But if every argument turns into a battle to win rather than a chance to understand, then you're already losing. Time won't fix things. Effort will. You can't just wait for the bad feelings to pass. You have to work through them, communicate, compromise, make the choice to stay in love. Grant sighed, finally looking up. That makes sense. But what if we've already hurt each other too much? Joe smiled. Then the next choice is simple. Either forgive or let go. A shocking revelation. Juliana's eyes welled up with tears. I don't want to let go. But I also don't know if I can forgive. Grant hesitated. Forgive what? And that's when it happened. Juliana reached into her bag, pulling out a folded letter. I found this, Grant, 2 weeks ago. Joe watched as Grant took the letter, his face draining of color. The cafe seemed to go silent as he unfolded the page, his eyes scanning over the words. His hands trembled. Where did you find this? He whispered. In your desk? Joe leaned back, sensing the weight of the moment. Do you want to talk about what it says? Grant exhaled sharply. It's from my ex. The fallout? Juliana wiped a tear from her cheek. She wrote you saying she still loves you, and you kept it. You didn't tell me. Grant shook his head. I didn't keep it because I feel the same. I kept it because, I don't know, maybe I needed closure. Maybe I was scared to admit it even affected me. Joe saw it then, the moment that defined whether this couple would make it or not. Juliana, does it matter more that he got the letter or that he hid it from you? Joe asked. She looked at Grant, then back at Joe. Both. Then let's address both. Grant, do you still love her? No. Juliana, can you believe that? She hesitated. I want to. Grant reached for Juliana's hand. I love you. I don't want to lose you over a piece of paper, but I can't erase the past. I can only prove to you that you're my future. Joe smiled, standing up. And that, my friends, is what love is about. Not being perfect. Just choosing each other over and over again. As he walked out of the cafe, he glanced back one last time. Maybe they'd make it. Maybe they wouldn't. But at least now, they had a fighting chance. Because sometimes, great advice isn't about fixing love. It's about giving people the tools to fight for it themselves. Grant and Juliana had no idea their relationship was about to be put under the microscope when they agreed to go on the love experiment, a new reality show that promised to test the limits of romance, trust, and compatibility. The couple who had been together for 2 years thought they had it all figured out until Bachelor Nation's own Joe Amabile showed up as a guest mentor. Joe, better known as Grocery Store Joe, from The Bachelorette and Bachelor in Paradise, had won over audiences with his down-to-earth personality and blunt honesty. When he entered the mansion where the couples were staying, he immediately sensed the tension between Grant and Juliana. You guys look like you're thinking too much, Joe said as he casually grabbed an apple from the kitchen counter. That's your first problem. Love isn't something you strategize, it's something you live. Juliana, a meticulous planner, frowned. But isn't it important to have a plan for the future? For marriage? Kids? Joe nodded. Sure, but if you spend all your time planning, you forget to enjoy what you have right now. Let me guess, your fights are about what's next, not what's now. Grant and Juliana exchanged glances. He wasn't wrong. Over the next few days, Joe guided them through a series of exercises designed to help them reconnect. First, he had them go on a silent date, where they weren't allowed to talk, only communicate through actions and expressions. It forced them to notice each other's subtle cues and body language, something they had long neglected in their endless debates about the future. Next, he set up a role reversal date, where Grant took on Juliana's responsibilities and vice versa. As Juliana struggled to handle Grant's high-pressure job calls while Grant tried to plan an Instagram-worthy weekend itinerary, they quickly realized how much they took each other's roles for granted. But the most shocking exercise came when Joe sat them down for a brutally honest conversation. If you broke up today, what's the one thing you'd regret never telling each other? Juliana hesitated before whispering, that I'm afraid of losing myself in a relationship. Grant swallowed, that I sometimes feel like I'm not enough for you. Joe leaned back satisfied. See, that's the real stuff. If you want to last, you gotta be vulnerable, not just with each other, but with yourselves. By the end of the love experiment, Grant and Juliana weren't just stronger, they were transformed. And it was all thanks to Joe Amabile's simple yet powerful advice. Stop overthinking, start feeling, and never be afraid to be real. As they left the show hand in hand, Juliana turned to Joe and said, "You should start a podcast." Joe grinned. "Maybe I will."